Knowing who to draft in your fantasy league is all well and good, but sometimes knowing who to avoid is even more important. We're going to walk you through the 5 worst offenses that you need to be avoiding for fantasy in 2025. We're going to kick things off. This one's nice and easy. The New Orleans Saints, one of the worst offenses last year. Now we have no idea who's going to be the starting quarterback, what the offensive line is going to do, and they've got a new head coach and offensive play caller. Tom, is this just a case of you don't want to be drafting any New Orleans Saints this year?
It's tricky because there are guys who I would like to draft, and if they fell to the right price, then I can see myself drafting, or if they end up in the right roster construction, I can see myself drafting them. But on the whole, yeah, I'm expecting this could be one of the worst teams in the league. I think it's safe to say it's going to be a fast-paced team where possible. Kellen Moore across the Chargers, across the Cowboys, across the Eagles, at times he's tried to keep the pace up. And maybe that's a way to mitigate the poor offensive line play that they're going to get. They ranked 22nd in PFF grade last year, probably worse now, definitely a bottom 8 unit, I would imagine. But if he gets the quarterback playing quickly and the unit working well, perhaps that's a way to keep defenses second guessing. I'm just not really sure that this offensive line is going to give us a productive running game, which makes me a bit worried. The kind of things that we've seen from Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, I'm not sure it's going to be replicable as well. So on the whole, yeah, I just really don't feel very positive about them.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of it. Look, the quarterback situation, I don't understand why you draft Tyler Shuck. I think, take a dart throw with Spencer Rattler, see what you've got there. I just don't think that he's going to be a fit for this offense. I don't think he's a fit for the wide receivers. Alvin Kamara, it feels like the contract he signed is primed for a trade. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's a mid-season trade candidate. The one guy I kind of like is Chris Olave. We've seen him produce elite numbers. He is wide receiver 35, but you've got the injury concerns, the concussion history. Maybe as like a dart throw, wide receiver 3, if you're looking for upside, I can get on board with that. But really, this is a team that I just want to be looking elsewhere whenever a Saint comes up as the highest on
Yeah.
ADP.
Well, I mean, see, I even struggle with Chris Olave because last week during weeks 1 to 6, when both Shaheed and Olave were healthy, Shaheed had a 30% target rate compared to Olave's 21%. Shaheed was the wide receiver 10 in that period compared to Olave being the wide receiver 46. Now, I don't think that Shaheed's going to get the deep throws the way that Derek Carr was giving him them, but it just kind of showed to me that I don't think of Chris Olave as somebody who can earn the volume no matter what. And with a rookie quarterback, that worry is magnified.
100%. And now we're going to move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if any other team in the league had the offseason that the Steelers have had, I feel like they'd be getting pelters constantly. But because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, people just give them a bit of break. But this is ridiculous. They have got new skill position players across the board. They bring in Aaron Rodgers, who I can tell you as a Jets fan was abysmal last year and only wanted to throw about 3 routes. What on earth is the upside and the hope for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense?
But the Steelers aren't looking for upside. They're looking for mediocrity because they're happy to be mediocre. They hang on to the idea of these winning seasons like it is this crown jewel. And people in Pittsburgh, though, they are starting to turn the tide. They are starting to get sick of it. And the idea that this is a team that by adding Aaron Rodgers is suddenly going to be primed to take on Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, even Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, those guys towards the bottom, just in the AFC alone. It's complete naivety. Yes, their defense will be good. Yes, they'll have a really good running game because Arthur Smith is good at designing the ground game. Caleb Johnson is a fun addition. Jaylen Warren might not be the talent that we hoped he would be a year or two ago, but he's still a reasonable player, and maybe that can benefit. But the one thing which we saw from the Jets last year is when it gets down into the red zone, that's Aaron Rodgers' game. Aaron Rodgers dictates everything last year, and he was top 7 in red zone pass attempts. He was top 4 from inside the 5. This is why Breece Hall had no touchdowns last year, because Aaron Rodgers is going to get those points and get the adulation. And you know what? As you say, he doesn't have it. Maybe he did with Devontae Adams. The two of them still had a strong connection, but he didn't have that connection with Garrett Wilson. And now he's got to build that again from scratch with a completely brand new group of players. He's had 23 interceptions over the last 2 years. You go back to the last 5 years combined, and he only had 22. So no, I think that this is a team just primed for mediocrity and will be doing the same quarterback dance at the end of the season.
Absolutely. And DK Metcalf going as wide receiver 23. This is a guy, as I said, Aaron Rodgers likes to throw 3 types of routes. He likes to play slant fat, the slot fade, and back shoulder comebacks. DK Metcalf does not fit in any of those sort of routes. Nope. He is a downfield, outside the numbers threat. He doesn't do well on those in-breaking routes. He's not someone that adjusts well to a back shoulder fade. Like, I just don't see the fit. And yeah, they can throw as much as they like over in the preseason and as much as they like before we get to training camp. Wide receiver 23, that is outrageously expensive for a bad offense, for a wide receiver that I don't think is going to be able to command the consistent volume. The one player that I've got a little bit of interest in, though, Caleb Johnson, RB27. To me, this, whether you like Caleb Johnson, dictates on who's running this offense. If this is Aaron Rodgers' offense, I want no part of Caleb Johnson. It's going to be incredibly pass heavy, as you said, around the red zone. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. If this is an Arthur Smith offense, it's going to be one of the most zone heavy schemes last year. It was last year. 74% of their runs were zone heavy. And that is exactly what Caleb Johnson does well. So are you Arthur Smith offense, Aaron Rodgers offense, and are you in at all on Caleb Johnson, Tom?
Yeah, I am in on Caleb Johnson because I think that we've seen Aaron Rodgers check down at a healthy enough rate that it can be the PPR scam. We've seen Mike Tomlin have Ben Roethlisberger, where it became the ultimate PPR scam, where he was just checking down to Najee Harris. So I believe in the check down. I don't think that they've got great options near the line of scrimmage for all the reasons you laid out, but DK Metcalf is going to be further downfield, getting annoyed when Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw the ball because he doesn't want to release it into a tight window. So I do like Caleb Johnson. I think that they have a good run blocking offensive line. You know, it's a pretty average unit overall, but they're much better in the run than against the, in passing situations. And I think that Caleb will get enough volume, and then when they get out of the red zone, that will be the battle. But if Caleb can break long runs because of the zone fit stuff like you mentioned, then potentially can be great. One thing I'd like to see, though, is Jaylen Warren, despite having like well over 100 receptions over the last 3 years, doesn't have a single receiving touchdown. So if he's going to contribute, it needs to change very quickly.
Let's hope some touchdown regression there. But if you want more redraft content or Dynasty or Best Ball or DFS, we've got you covered for whatever your fantasy needs are. Hit the subscribe button. You will not regret it. We talked about the Saints at the top being one of the worst offenses. My bet for the worst offense in 2025 is the Cleveland Browns. 15.2 points per game last year. We've got a 4-way quarterback battle heading into training camp. It feels like the Browns are heading into a rebuild phase, and I'm not sure I want any part of this offense in fantasy. Tom, are you with me, or is there some shining light that you're still holding out hope for?
No, and it's too hard to build an optimistic case here. Even if you say we got 16, 17 games of Joe Flacco, I would still be saying I just don't really believe it. Like, I'm not sure that Joe Flacco can keep the magic going at this point. Kenny Pickett is not an NFL quarterback. Like, it just doesn't marry up for me. Kenny Pickett has been dreadful throughout his career. And then you look across the board, it's like there's talent at wide receiver, but are they going to get the ball often enough to make a difference? There's talent in David Njoku. I mean, yes, he's had 80 plus targets in each of the last 3 seasons, but I just don't believe that this team and this unit is going to move the ball and be able to stay in games enough where it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the ADP prices. Okay, there's some cheaper options, but Jerry Jeudy going as a wide receiver 3, that feels outrageous considering, yeah, he had a good stretch last year with Jameis Winston under center, but then struggled elsewhere. And I can't get on board with the top 10 price in terms of top 10 price for David Njoku. Cedric Tillman at wide receiver 61. I'm a little bit intrigued there, just purely if we can see that 3-game stretch where he was a top 12 wide receiver during that 3-game stretch with Jameis Winston. I feel like if anyone's going to produce with any of these question mark quarterbacks, it's a contested catch outside receiver that can just have the ball thrown up. Quinton Judkins, RB24, obviously lots of ego issues going on as we speak, but any interest in someone like Dylan Sampson if Christian Judkins is going to miss time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if the price becomes too high, then possibly not, because this is still a team where you can look at them and poke holes in their offensive line. I don't think that's going to be a unit that we particularly want to be too invested in. But Dylan Sampson is more interesting than Jerome Ford, for instance. And I'd like to have some Dylan Sampson unless the price gets too expensive.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one to watch that over the next few weeks. Now, Tom, you wanted this included, not myself. The New York Jets. We've got an improved offensive line. We've got Garrett Wilson locked up. We've got young tight ends, three-headed backfield. Justin Fields, franchise savior. Why are they going to be one of the worst offenses in the league?
It's not necessarily one of the worst offenses in the league. It's just more lacking the upside overall. Like, you look at this wide receiver room and the tight end room. Like, we both like Mason Taylor. We were both excited that he landed with a clear runway to a starting role. And then you look at the wide receiver room. And behind Garrett Wilson, it's Josh Reynolds, who is a fine kind of 20th round best ball pick, but probably isn't going to give you much upside. Then there's Alan Lazard, Malachi Corley, Arian Smith, and Xavier Gibson. I'm just not sure who among that is going to be able to break through, say, more than 400 receiving yards. Who among there is going to give you more than 3 touchdowns? So if it's all going to Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson got paid, he deserved to get paid, and we still haven't really seen his ceiling. But Garrett Wilson is going to be facing a lot of heavy coverage. We know a team with Justin Fields and the running back room that they've got is probably going to lean incredibly run heavy. And if teams know that's what they want to do, then, unless you're an excellent team, it can be quite easy sometimes to just take that away from a team. So I do worry about Justin Fields' accuracy, his ability to take sacks. He tends to be a drive killer. And much as I like Justin Fields for fantasy, I am worried that this team is going to put up a lot of low-scoring games.
Yeah, I think the worry for me with this receiving core is that it's Garrett Wilson and a bunch of role players. And I'm not sure there's anyone that has a varied enough skill set that can draw coverage away from a particular thing. And I do worry that could be a challenge for Garrett Wilson. Justin Fields for fantasy, look, we know he's going to run a lot. I think there is a commitment to me that he's going to be the 17-game starter for the Jets.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt of that. So QB 14 prices, I'm really happy with that. I think that, if he's a 17-game starter, we know that he's going to be good for fantasy. If you look at when he started the last 3 years, he's averaged over 18 points per game in each of those seasons. Like, the guy may not be a great NFL quarterback for fantasy. He's great. We know that the offense is going to be run heavy. The problem is that I think this is much more of a committee backfield than anyone wants to admit. Like, Breece Hall in a contract year, I've said several times on this channel that I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded. We've got reports recently that Braylon Allen is going to be the David Montgomery in this offense. Isaiah Davis is better than most teams' third running back. Like, I think this is going to be shared around, and there's not going to be a true bell cow, and that's probably going to cap the ceiling of Breece Hall and make him a difficult click in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like the over-under lines for Breece Hall, and it's set at 5.5 touchdowns this year. Now, I think that he hits over that in the rushing department because he should have been over there last year, but we already talked about it when we talked about the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers just took all the pass attempts. And then you go back to previous years, the quarterback play was so bad. And I do think, though, with Justin Fields at quarterback, it can open up to let Breece Hall be more efficient in certain areas. But he's also a running back who I don't think he's ever been over 1,000 rushing yards, which it's kind of hard to just be like, right, we're going into year 4, and we're not hit 1,000 yards yet. That's at a certain point you've got to start dinging them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final offense we're going to touch on, the New York Giants. Another team with question marks at quarterback. We've got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart. Is this just a case of waiting for Jackson Dart, and how soon is it going to come?
I think that there's real potential that Jackson Dart starts from week 1. I don't think many people are projecting it that way. I think most people are hedging and projecting Russell Wilson for 6, 7, 8 starts. but there was enough positive buzz around OTAs where it sounded like he had a reasonable chance. I'm not sure that he's got the supporting cast outside of Malik Nabers to make it really click from day one. Like Wan'Dale Robinson is just a PPR scam. He's a complete slot receive merchant who offers very little apart from just catch the ball. Darius Slayton, we know, can pop up for the odd weeks, but Malik Nabers is the only player of serious talent. The running backs are fine in Tyron Tracy and Cam Scatterbo, but they're not players who are going to necessarily make Jackson Dart's life incredibly easier. And one of the reasons why I'm down on this offense in general is I think that the defense has potential to be really, really good this year. The front seven, I think, are going to be absolute game wreckers. I think that there's a chance that they're going to keep scores lower than we've previously seen. And if they're keeping the Giants within touch, then do they just lean into Tyron Tracy and Cam Scatterbo and Devin Singletary, making that three-headed committee a nightmare for all of us in fantasy to figure out?
Yeah, it just feels like it's an offense that the only piece you can be confident in the role they're going to play all season is Malik Nabers. Is there a point at which too much volume could be bad for Nabers? Could we see him force-fed targets, force-fed touches, similar to the way he was last year at times, that ended up in him getting injured and seeing a lot of time off the field? Are you concerned that it could almost be putting too much on a young man's shoulders?
I think last year, I mean, they definitely pushed it. It's kind of gotten a little bit lost that because Brock Bowers beat the rookie receptions record with 112, that Malik Nabers ended up with 109 and broke Puka Nakua's record from the previous season. But among quarterbacks with 50 or more dropbacks, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle all ranked in the bottom 20% for yards per attempt. And only DeVito ranked above 40th in QB rating. So getting even capable quarterback play from Jackson Dart or Russell Wilson, getting guys who push the ball downfield a bit better, if those targets start to become slightly more valuable and slightly better, then it becomes a situation where maybe Malik Nabers isn't having to try and turn every disastrous target into an incredible play.
Yeah, and also one last point on the Wan'Dale Robinson point. He had minus 0.17 EPA per target last year. To give you an idea, there were 3 players who saw 70 targets who had negative EPA. Elijah Moore, Wan'Dale Robinson, Dontavian Wicks. It's almost impossible to have negative EPA when you're in the passing game. And Wan'Dale Robinson achieved it because it is such a pathetic ADOT. He doesn't add much after the catch, that it's just no upside. There's no hope. It is empty targets. And if you're looking to build a good offense, you need to remove those empty targets that are achieving nothing. So I do worry that, Wan'Dale Robinson had 140 targets last year and was still only average for fantasy. So I don't see any point chasing that again. And definitely an offense and a player that I'm looking to avoid. But do you disagree with anything we said? Do you disagree with any of our 5 West offenses? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you dive across to see our 5 offenses with upside. We don't always like being negative. Time to be positive. Hit the subscribe, hit the like on the way out, and we'll be back with more content very soon.